Hey, it's Ryan again. So I was thinking about this idea of shifting realities and the fact that I'd always wanted, so I'd read books like Think and Grow Rich. About a year ago, I read As a Man Thinketh. I read these books. I didn't have any real clear idea of what any of it meant because I didn't really have a fundamental understanding of reality itself. And so during my spiritual awakening, as I had a more I started to develop a more coherent idea of what it was like, reality, of what the actual nature of reality was. It opened up the possibilities of not changing my reality. And I have to give a shout out to a YouTube channel, Be Something Wonderful. um, he just repeatedly explains it. So you can so it's just he just keeps saying it over and over again. So eventually that aspect of the reality, that aspect of um, thinking of reality as a direction, um, instead of needing a fix. And that's a really interesting concept, because I can look back at my life and see where there were moments where I certainly made things happen, better, worse, for better, for worse, either way. But certainly I chose that direction to go in. And we all have this, there's a colloquial, it's what direction are you going, like that idea that in life, we are all on a trajectory. And that is, and in for people who haven't had this introduction to the spiritual awakening, or the idea that, you know what we see, the manifestation of physical reality around us, is simply a projection of consciousness. So if you don't understand that, it's going to be really difficult, from my perspective, to have an idea of what it means to manifest your reality. And again, it doesn't mean that I'm saying, well, I'm going to manifest myself into a bank vault so I can have, bars of gold. It's the idea that if I were my consciousness essentially resides in it, for lack of a better term or conceptual idea, is the way I think of it is we're residing in this sphere. And on this sphere, there are points, and there's an infinite amount of points on a sphere. So whatever direction I want to go in within this vehicle, not this is not none of these terms are anything other than the only way I can conceptualize an unconceptualizable, that's even a word, idea. Um, there aren't really any words to put it in, but we all, since this knowledge is being passed on to us, I can only utilize the verbiage and articulate in the language that I have. So so as I'm within this vehicle, I can, as I travel in one direction, there is a sequence of events that occur in that line. So if I stay on that line, I will continue to experience the events that are in that line. That there are no other events in that line. Now, something that I'm coming to terms with is the idea of creation being complete. So in many ways, I do understand that all things are happening now. They are all happening now. And I used to think my idea was, see, when I was in the Air Force for 10 years and I taught radios, and we would learn about frequencies, and I would learn about all these extra frequencies that are created when you create one frequency. I was always thinking, like, my thought process was, well, certainly if I'm vibrating, if my atoms are vibrating at a specific frequency, then I am creating alternate versions of myself. This was years ago. So I got out of the Air Force in 2011. So this is probably 2008, 2007 when I started to have these ideas of alternate realities, and the fact that it's not only probable or possible, it's the the probability is so high, was so high in that idea, in many years before I even became spiritually awake. That idea was in my head. It was already there. I was already thinking that this cannot be the only thing. So when we talk about traveling on that line of that, there are in that, within that line, those events that occur in that line are going to occur in that line. So that's one stream of reality. So interestingly enough, as I became spiritually awake, once I figured out, once I understood, and not only because I saw it happening, but internally, during the most intense aspect of my spiritual awakening, without a doubt, my interior, so within my chest, up to my collarbones, down to probably my navel, my belly button, there was an intense vibration. It was, I don't know how else to explain it, but it feels crazy. That's the only way to put it. You feel like you're going crazy because you're like, I must be sick. There's something wrong with me. I can't do this. So that was a vibration. And I'll tell you even further is that during that time period, my youngest son, who is 13 years old, was away at Boy Scout camp. And he was away for 8 days. And so during the time that he was gone, from the time that he left to the time that he returned, he almost didn't recognize me physically. Like he did not, when he came to me, after, as I was picking him up from his camping trip, his Boy Scout camp, he said to me, he said, I almost didn't recognize you. What happened? And I was like, nothing, buddy. I'm just, it's still me. But the fact is that this is truly what I believe now. Now, this is what I believe, like through me. I can feel it move through me now. I can feel the belief, the knowledge, like kind of like permeate through my body. Is that I raised my vibration to a place where I shifted realities. So whatever reality that was on, whatever reality that was, I then shifted it to a different reality. And that there were subtle changes that occurred. Not only there were physical changes that occurred, but there were psychic changes that occurred as well. And you know, the physical things and the psychic things can be talked about in another video, but essentially, as I raised the vibratory level of my being, I shifted realities into a completely new place. Now, I say not completely, because there are things that I still have in this world, relationships that I still have in this world. There's still difficult relationships that I have with family. There's a relationship that I have with a woman that I love very much and I'm going to marry. So those things did not change. I'm being very cognizant of now that I know that this is real. It's an absolute truth, is that God wants us to be creative. So God wants us to create, because that creates, the more that gets created, the more experience we have, the more the consciousness learns, the more it expands, and it gets bigger and bigger until what? It just keeps expanding. So we just keep, we keep learning, we keep creating, we do all these things. The creative process can be artistic, it can be all sorts of things. There's lots of things. You could be an engineer and create something. You could be an artist and create something. But the point is that consciousness, the source, God, the essence, whatever it is, whatever you want to call it, the collective consciousness, as it's called in some circles, it wants us to create. And so when we do that, we are fulfilling the reality, the expectation of the universe. So as we create, we fulfill that destiny, that expectation. And that everything that I just said in the past 11 minutes, that is the craziest collection of words that I could ever have thought of saying. And if I said it 6 months ago to myself, or I heard somebody say this kind of stuff 6 months ago, there's no way I would have believed it. You would not have been able to convince me that that is true. But now knowing, that's not just, and then it's not even just knowing, it runs through me. Like I don't know how else to explain it. It is something that is, it's just, you can't, it's really difficult to articulate. But anyway, it was, it's interesting because in those moments where you're realizing something that you have done, you've created, you've done, it's completely unbelievable. It's just, I can't. And so that awe of creation that I become responsible for, because again, I'm not on a line, and I'm not on a particular, I'm just going to use this as an analogy. I'm not on a line of reality and trying to change the things that are in the reality. You can never do that. It will never happen. The only way to do it is to shift realities. There's an infinite amount of realities. So when it all goes back to the frequency that I thought, I was like, there's got to be some credence to this idea that creating these frequency shifts, or this frequency that are generated, that there is something to that. And lo and behold, it's true. It's absolutely true. And it makes you sound crazy when you say it out loud to other people. And I almost don't even want to do this, because it's almost a confirmation. It is confirmation that what I'm saying is real, and it's real because I've seen it, I've felt it, I know it. It exists in me and through me. So anyway, that was my thought. That the most interesting thought from the idea, the most interesting bit of knowledge, is that you don't change anything on that line of reality. There's nothing to change. You can't change it. If all realities have been created and are created, like in that sphere, from every point that emanates out from that sphere is a reality. And because there are an infinite amount of points on that sphere, you can choose the direction that you want to go in. And if you're stuck in a timeline that you don't like, or you're stuck in, reality that you don't like, I meditate, pray, be grateful, change your emotional state, and shift to a different timeline. Reality. So if you shift to a different reality, and you have the things that you want within that reality, you have to want them and then make it so. To get there, you have to get there. I don't know if that made sense to you. I hope it did. But anyway, that was my thought for today, and I guess we'll just talk again. Have a good day.